Vulnerability is not just an idea. It is an experience. For some, vulnerability enters into our lives like a scene in a horror movie. The movie's scene shifts to the dark woods, a campsite. Music on the radio is blaring. Welcome to the jungle. People are dancing and sitting around with intentions to feed their cravings. The lighting goes dim. The music continues to play. But the scary horror music kills or muffles the music on the radio and the playful sounds of the people. Boom! Vulnerability kicks the door down and moves slowly toward you, like a monster in a movie, with its arms outstretched, hands pointed to the ground, its straight legs taking long strides, and its remorseless eyes fixed on you as its target. Most of us run from it. It is ugly because it causes us to make a decision to fight or take flight. All of us experience vulnerability to some degree or another. Vulnerability is, like my good friend Chris Bouch says, exposure. Like most words and ideas, a dozen definitions for the idea of vulnerability exists. But my mind settles upon this one, and it's pretty comfortable here. It kicks its feet up and throws its hands clasped behind its head, settled with the idea of vulnerability being exposure. I don't know if this is a brand new take on vulnerability, but I do think that based upon my experiences and my background, I will be able to generate cause for there to be at least a new perspective, a fresh perspective, to poke its head through the soil of this particular conversation. Vulnerability is to willfully, upon your own accord, with your own self-interest set upon the back burners, say no to yourself and to position yourself to be susceptible, to be in harm's way of physical, mental, and or even emotional damages. To put yourself willfully in a position where you can be harmed emotionally, physically, and even mentally. Vulnerability is all around us, and we live through it. Although I'm not a religious man, I practice no religion. I don't ascribe to any religions. I don't promote any religions. I have at one time. If you know me well, you know I have. But I practice no religions. I don't ascribe to any. I appreciate Jesus still because his story is one that he shows the attribute of vulnerability. He shows that vulnerability is not a monster that's pursuing you. It's actually a friend that you must pursue. And he not only shows vulnerability in sort of a normal, average way, he shows vulnerability exquisitely. And his vulnerability is him dying on behalf of individuals who are vulnerable, individuals who have judgment headed toward them, or even are headed toward judgment themselves. And Jesus dies for the people who would be condemned at some point in time. Wow, that's vulnerability. And we see it in Jesus's life. We see vulnerability all around us and we live through it. I'm a parent, 2 girls, and I'm sure some of you are parents, and you tuck your children in at night into their beds. You ensure that they have a safe, warm place to live. And it's not easy. It doesn't come easy. I know that you neglect all sorts of things that you really want to take care of. You've got different things that you want to take care of, like renovations of your kitchen or your bathrooms. You've got different hopes and dreams that you want to accomplish, but you put those behind yourself so that you might be able to provide this place for your own children to enjoy. And you involve yourselves in things that aren't not just the normal thing for you to involve yourselves in for them. You put yourself into their lives and you hope that even the extracurricular things they'll do and participate in, because you know if you sacrifice a few things, their life would be just that much better. And you know how vulnerable being a parent is. A vulnerability is all around us. We live through it. I've been married for almost 2 decades now. It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that I've been married for almost 2 decades. But for these 2 decades, I've realized that when I tell my wife I love her, not just the first time I told her, but the millionth time that I've told her, it's still a vulnerable experience. And for you, a female who tells their significant other that she loves them, the first time, the millionth time, the 2 millionth time, it's all vulnerable. Love is vulnerable. Life is vulnerable. And all of these different things in terms of vulnerability is something that I think we can hug, we can embrace, we can take it in and say, you're with me and I'm with you. Vulnerability is all around us and we live through it. I live with vulnerability daily. You do too. Will you do something today that might scare you? It scares me for sure. And I say that in my own vulnerability. Don't run out of the room while the monster lumbers your way. While the monster's arms are outstretched and hands or palms are down and they lumber and vulnerability lumbers your way. Don't run. Do your very best to take a breath, sit, stand still, turn, face it. Who knows? Who knows? Vulnerability might not be a monster. It might actually not be something that's coming after you like, "Arr." It might be saying in a childlike voice, "Do you want to be friends with me?"